out Navy sweethearts in every port, and the pin-up girls are the boys who sail the 7 seas. But I'd like you to meet the real sweetheart of the Navy, 1944 model.
You mean me?
No, not you, Red. I mean her. She's a patrol torpedo, a PT to the Navy, and I guess only another boat to a landlubber. But to the guys who take her out, she's a high-stepping, sweet-singing Lulu. She's built for speed and rough weather and danger in far waters. She's a power-packing mama with a thunderbolt punch in either hand, and her foaming wake has marked the grave of many an enemy ship. She's got the temper of a tornado and the personality of a wildcat. And boy, do we love her. You see, she was a war baby. It takes thousands of skilled workers, 3 ships to them, to build Uncle Sam's PT fleet. And they're turning out these long, sleek hulls much too fast to suit the enemy. Women and girls drill holes for the seams, while hammers join the chorus. And veteran workers shape more fittings. Riveting, too, is woman's work. And striping those big torpedo tubes, the job of another. While still another deftly braids the wiring that gives the PT its spark and light. A veteran worker is Frederick Buckley, going strong at 77. His son, Commander John Buckley, led a PT squadron in the Philippines and is one of the most decorated heroes of the war. Bet you're mighty proud of that boy of yours, aren't you, Dad? Now the boat is ready for launching. A crane lifts her off the dock and swings her over the waiting water that's to be her home. There's no ceremony here, no time or need for it. These speedy torpedo carriers are built for action, and the whole idea is to produce them quickly and hurry them off to the battle zones. Meanwhile, at the huge Packard factory in Detroit, powerful marine engines are being forged in fiery furnaces, the molten metal carefully skimmed of all impurities. Then the finished ingots are thrust into ladles to be melted again and poured into iron cauldrons for the 4,000-pound punch of a giant drop hammer. Now a gleaming aluminum crankcase is ready to be anodized. The aluminum metal is dipped for several seconds in a red dye, and presto, it comes up a bright yellow, forever sealed against the destructive corrosion of the sea. Next, the welders, sewing the coolant jackets to the cylinder heads. Then the block is lowered into position and joined to the completed crankcase. Now the whole is ready for assembly. Pistons and bearings and carburetors and wiring and all the thousands of precision parts that go into the building of this great power plant. Say, it must sound like I know an awful lot about PTs. Well, I do. That's me, Bob Palmer. I used to work at Packard till I got my commission in the Navy. That's why I chose the PT service. This was the last engine I was to work on, and I kind of felt I ought to put my trademark on her. Red paint. Nobody seems to be looking. I'll just take a chance and tattoo this baby. You never could tell. We might meet again, somewhere out there where we both were going. And if we did, I'd know her. Oh, I didn't mean so. I didn't. But he was Navy and understood. He shook my hand and wished me luck. Indoctrination school. Didn't look much like an officer at first. But after 6 weeks, the Navy had sharpened me plenty. Then it was on to the PT base at Melville, Rhode Island. It was a great moment when the Marine Guard opened that gate and we showed our orders. Melville's the Patrol Torpedo Training School. And when you come out, you're a full-fledged PT combat officer. Meet Joe Smith, my buddy, and one swell guy. Smitty's brother had been lost on a PT in the Pacific. From the beginning, Melville meant something very special to us. You sensed its spirit when you saw the proud, determined bearing of the enlisted men who had come from all branches of the Navy for PT training. Each had volunteered for this more dangerous service. Each had been selected only after rigid physical and mental tests. They had a real right to be proud. And Smitty and I felt pretty humble just watching them. Melville is the PT Annapolis, and already its heroes are legion. Many of our instructors were returned heroes. I recognized them at once. Men like Faulkner, Navy Cross, sank 2 destroyers. Gamble, Navy Cross, sank or damaged 3 destroyers. Robinson, Silver Star, 1 destroyer. Al Snowball, Jap submarine. And Taylor, 1 destroyer, 1 light cruiser. Now the new class was assembled to hear an address by Lieutenant Faulkner. He didn't say much, but what he did say meant plenty.
Gentlemen, I congratulate you on being selected for Melville. Now let's get down to business. PT may stand for many things, but here it stands for Patrol Torpedo and Plenty Tough. You men are to receive 2 months of the most intensive mental and physical training. You'll finish as PT combat officers, or you won't finish. It's up to you. Good luck and good hunting.
And that was that. Served with plenty of mustard. Now we wondered when we'd get to ride on a PT. Then over the loudspeaker.
Now listen to this. Student officers of Division A, reporting once to the skipper of PT number 163 for indoctrination cruise.
Brother, that was an invitation we'd been waiting for. They decked us out in underway gear, and we started down the dock. Then flags broke and bright semaphore from the signal tower. The glass was raised to inspect the harbor. And there she was. Every trim line of her alive and beautiful. Going aboard for the first time was something to remember. Like coming face to face with a girl you'd been crazy to meet but hadn't dared approach. You felt scared and happy and all tight inside. Suddenly the skipper gave the command to cast off. The lines were freed, then deftly coiled. The skipper's hand was on the throttle, and you held on hard as you felt the surging power beneath your feet and watched the water frothing into foam. The crowd dug in for a sprinter's toehold. The throttle was shoved full speed, and then we were racing like a rocket for the open sea. Talk about your Miss Americas and all those other high-powered speedboats. Brother, you've never moved on water until you've ridden one of these galloping comets. It was rough, nerve-jarring, non-stop action, and it shook you loose from everything you'd ever held sacred. She did a merry dance out there, half jitterbug and half adagio. And when she lunged past Benton Reef Lightship, you knew you were really on your way to sea. I looked over our armament, hard-hitting guns. The 4 torpedoes that carried sudden death to anything from a corvette to a battleship. The depth charges that could hammer an enemy sub into scrap iron. Yes, these babies were really loaded for bear. The skipper called me forward. All right. We were due for a lesson in preliminary boat handling. He explained about the wheel and how a PT could be kept under control even in the heaviest seas. He showed us how to keep her steady on a simple turn, how to straighten her out with just the right pressure, then a sharper turn, never losing your firm grip as she arched into it. The skipper wanted us to get the feel of the boat and see how smartly she handled it. Finally, it was my turn. I was pretty scared at first. I gripped the wheel like a wrestler putting on a hammerlock. Gradually, I realized this sea bronco wasn't so tough after all. What had I been worrying about anyway? I wondered what she'd do if I just gave her a real twist. Then the skipper took over, and we headed home. How'd you like it, Smitty? Uh-oh. Yeah. There wasn't any doubt about PT meaning plenty tough. And that went for physical training, too. Boxing was my dish, too, until... But judo wrestling. Brother, I knew all the tricks. Just watch me take this guy. Ouch! There were books on navigation with plenty of longitude and latitude. There was working over charts like this one of the Japan Sea. That was one pond I intended to be on when the fireworks started. There was learning to use a sextant, hours spent in plane identification class, more hours with two-way radio. There was wireless, an important little item to every sailor. Rules of the road were important, too, and you learned them well. Books and more books until you were practically living in them and pumping your way from class to class. Torpedo instruction was something we'd all look forward to. These were the fangs of the PT and deadly poison to enemy ships. Nice baby.
Watch it, Palmer.
Owie! All of us had to learn diving. You never know when you'll have to hide out in some enemy-patrolled harbor and make your own repairs. The instructor explained the workings of the helmet. Boy, I hope he doesn't call on me to demonstrate it. Smitty wasn't too anxious to go either. Poor Smitty. All right, Who, me? On with the helmet, and I was starting down. And after a couple of minutes, up I came. But it wasn't so bad. Gunnery instruction made our trigger fingers itch for action. Motor repair class was duck soup for me. I knew every working part of a PT's vitals. And I gave Smitty a few tips that might come in handy. Then semaphore signaling. It was learning a new language, the battle language of the Navy. H-I. We stood inspection regularly. A PT officer must be as trim and neat as his ship. And the CO was very particular that we'd learned our manuals and our manners. When those sharp eyes clamped down on you in that old Navy once-over, brother, you knew you weren't the big shot your gal thought you were. Now he moved on to the enlisted men, and the long blue rank snapped proudly erect to meet him. It was good to know that these men would soon be our combat crews and our comrades. Finally, we were ready for our first phase of underway training. This meant putting to sea for squadron maneuvers. Now came the signal for another phase of underway training, gunnery practice. I took my turn. Then the instructor gave me the old okay, and everything was swell. Smitty had done fine in gunnery class, but now he missed with every shot. I couldn't understand it. The minute he got into the turret, he went completely trigger-happy. Started firing immediately. Forgot everything he'd been taught about taking it easy before firing. The instructor had to give him the thumbs-down sign. They posted our marks on the bulletin board, and you got a real lift when you saw you were doing okay. But that gunnery mark of Smitty's could wreck him, even though he was passing and everything else. The instant he'd touch a gun, he'd think about his brother and just go to pieces. All at once, I realized why he'd gone haywire. Suddenly, I had an idea. Smitty had an idea, too. But picking four-leaf clovers wasn't my conception of the best method for passing gunnery. Hey, Smitty! Smitty! He must have thought I'd gone wacky when I came tearing up with a broom. Look, Smitty, this broom's the gun, see? You've got to make yourself relax. Lead your target. No, you're still over-anxious. I remembered how my father taught me to count 10 to control my temper. But on account of this was war, Smitty'd only have to count to 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, wham! And I got it. Okay, you try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fire. It worked. Back to sea again for more underway training. We were beginning to feel like veterans now. A very important factor in PT warfare is a smoke screen, and every boat is equipped to produce its own. A quick turn of a valve and the thick smoke goes streaming down the wind to blind and confuse the enemy. Yes, smoke is a valuable ally of the slugging little giant killers. Just another trick to befuddle the enemy. No wonder the Jap calls them devil boats. Today, Smitty was to have his last chance at underway gunnery. I told him to use the old noggin. I pounded on that 5 count. Now it was up to him. I could see he was nervous as he climbed into the turret. I knew how much this meant to him. And then the target came over. I threw in another reminder. 5, Smitty. Smitty got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boy, he'd done it. Then came that day of days, graduation. Funny how much a little piece of paper can mean to a guy. We sailed with the next big convoy. And finally, we arrived at a small tropical island where our squadron was based. We were hardly settled before we received the order for our first combat patrol. As we left the briefing barge, we wished each other luck. Now we were all set for action. As skipper, I ordered the lines cast off and signaled my engineer for power. And in another moment, we were headed out to sea. Richards, one of the gunners, came up from below. Hey, come here. What do you got there? The boys had picked up the little guy in Bougainville. But that was too hard to spell in their letters home, so they named him Brooklyn. Now our stowaway could work his way as mascot. As we neared enemy waters, I decided to go to the engine room to see that everything was shipshape. 1315 and her crew were my responsibility. And this first assignment would show what kind of team we'd make. The 3 engines were singing a sweet symphony, and that red mark. The last engine I'd worked on at Packard. Now I knew everything would be okay. We were heading into the danger zone. It was early afternoon when suddenly an enemy tanker on the horizon. The Jap was low in the water. You could see he was carrying plenty of cargo. General quarters, man your battle stations. General quarters, man your battle stations. The crew sprang to action. It was our first contact with the Nip, and we were raring to get at him. We set up the torpedo rangefinder. I snapped open the torpedo panel with its control apparatus. The torpedo tubes were ready. We were closing in fast. As we started our target run, we smelled gasoline. The Jap was loaded with it. We wouldn't need a tin fish for this clunk. We'd strafe his decks and then aim for his midsection where the gas was stored. I spun the wheel hard. We were ready. Brooklyn, too. We swung around to hit him again. Our next assignment was a night mission. We were to remain at sea until further orders. Something big was in the wind. At dawn, we hove to, waiting for better visibility. Then we saw her. A Jap sub, charging her batteries. We roared into action. The big boat started to run. He was afraid of a torpedo. Suddenly, he went into a crash dive. There was no time now for torpedo action. We made a run on him. All our guns firing. He was submerging fast. Set to drop out depth charges. A third charge. Then, a spreading oil slick. And it was all over. We resumed our patrol. Suddenly an enemy plane spotted us. We recognized him as a carrier-based dive bomber. That meant a Jap convoy was coming through. General quarters, man your battle stations. Enemy plane at 3 o'clock. We hit him, but we didn't stop him. We weaved, zigzagged to get out of range. Smitty ran aft to help direct our fire. Our weaving maneuvers made it tough for our gunners. This time the Nip was going to strafe us. Our fire prevented him from trying another bomb. Through our barrage. He got Richards. I signaled Smitty to come forward. The Jap came in off the starboard quarter, which Smitty remembered to count. 5, Smitty. 5, Smitty. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Learned to play that tune on a broomstick. We moved on, seeking the enemy convoy. And suddenly there she was, herded by a flock of battle wagons. Instantly, we radioed her position. The message was picked up by one of our carriers in the area. And now she released her planes. Meanwhile, a flight of Navy scouts had received our report. We waited tensely, our torpedoes ready. Blast the enemy. Suddenly, a formation of land-based bombers came roaring in to begin the attack. Adjusted the torpedo rangefinder, a crippled enemy carrier. We raced in closer. Fire 1. Fire 2. Japs call them devil boats. They're rough and they're tough and they're fast and they're deadly. America is proud of their record and proud of the men whose skill and daring have made them famous. Watch out, Tokyo. The devil boats are coming.